and fellow riders. Warm welcome to Horse Talk. And the topic is 5 ways that you easily can solve problems with horses in a way that lasts versus managing the symptoms, which, after all, most of us do if we don't know better. And that's also something that makes riding horses and handling them more complicated than it needs to be. So glad you are here together with me because I'm going to give these 5 examples of quite common horse problems and how you can solve them in a way that lasts and without just, managing the symptoms. Yes, so let's dive right into it. And if you are here, let me know in the comments below with a little yes, and also maybe let me know where you are from. So I think the first problem we might run into with horses is separation anxiety. Horses are, after all, herd animals, and when they are alone without other horses around, they can tend to become anxious. And some horses even have like this preferred friend that they kind of freak out if their friend isn't there. And managing these symptoms would be something like making sure the horse friend is always there or making sure that your horse is never alone, which, will keep the horse relaxed, but it doesn't solve the separation anxiety. In fact, it's probably just going to fuel the separation anxiety. Yes, so we need to help these horses find relaxation and confidence while kind of standing on their own feet and also while being alone. And we don't do that by simply just putting them alone, which is going to make them freak out and be even more afraid when alone. But we do that by particular groundwork that I teach in a free training that you actually can find on ridelikeaviking.no/trust. But it takes the sessions it takes. Like in this training, there was a mare. She had had severe separation anxiety for years because one time when she was alone, she tried to break out of the stable and then hurt herself. So the owner then figured, if I just keep her together with her horse friend at all times, this is never going to happen again, which of course made the separation anxiety even worse. Yes, anyhow, you need to solve the cause, and the cause is very often that the horse finds relaxation and confidence from being with other horses. Yes. So typically, like if a horse has separation anxiety and is starting to get anxious, and our solution is like, oh my God, we need to put the horse together with the other horses, then of course the other horses becomes the horse's reason for finding relaxation, which again will fuel the separation anxiety. What we need to work on is that the horse is able to relax. Yes, and we can do that through a specific groundwork that relaxes horses and teaches them to find confidence when standing on their own feet. Yes, which is shown in the free training, which you might have already done. Yes, and there's another problem that many horses have, which is rushing. So let me know in the comments below if you have a rushy horse. This is quite common and nothing to be ashamed of, but it tends to wear out our rein aid if we have a rushing horse and we don't solve the cause of the problem. Because the more we hold them back, the stiffer they are going to get and the harder they are going to get to stop. And the more we try like harsher bits or different tie-ins and tools to then prevent the horse from rushing, there's a limit to how severe bits and how many side reins we can actually ride with. Yes, and a sign a horse is rushing is that if we, drop the reins, then the horse is going to go faster. The horse isn't maintaining speed from self. Yes. And this can start also like when we are mounting the horse. Like if we need to, keep the reins tight to be able to mount, and we let go of the reins, and that's how the horse goes forward. And, of course, this horse is rushing, and probably also a little bit or quite a lot on the front part, because horses who are rushing, they will, go with the front part first. Versus if the horse isn't rushing and is able to maintain speed on loose rein, it's our leg aid, which if we then connect our leg aid to the hind legs of the horse is going to move off with the hind legs first and not the front part. So rushing is it's not a good spot to be in with a horse, because it tends to wear out our rein aid, make horses stiffer in the bit and in the bodies, and also make the horses on the front part. And I think my example would probably be like many horses, they start rushing when they are together with other horses on the trail. Like they don't want to be left behind, right? And what we as riders tend to do is, make sure the horse doesn't go faster by holding them back. And this tends to, make the horse a little bit uncomfortable, especially when behind other horses, and they will want to, get out of the pressure, because horses always look for the release, right? And what often tends to happen with these horses is that when we are riding in front and the others are behind us, then the horse is relaxing and isn't rushing anymore. So that's where we let go of the reins and are maybe even able to ride on loose reins, which is going to fuel the horse's rushiness even more. Because then the horse isn't only, concerned about the others leaving, the horse is also very eager to get in front where the rider releases the reins. So actually, the more we are holding a rushy horse back when in the back riding behind others, the worse it's gonna get. Yes, but there's another solution that I have done with many horses, and that has cured their rushing, and especially when riding with others. And that's basically going on a ride together with a couple of other riders that are kind of helping me out solving the problem. And I, tell them to leave, trot off to the next gate or something and wait for me there. And since I'm then riding a horse who has a rushing problem, that horse wants to trot, with the others. But since I have taught the horse the bend to stop and the bend to slower speed, I can kind of bend the horse to a slower speed, preferably then walk, and then offer the horse to walk on the loose reins. And since this horse has this idea of, wanting to run after the others and wanting to be in front all the time, that horse is going to start trotting. So that's when I bend the horse back to walk again in a way that, empties worry and makes the horse soft and relaxed in the body. And then I offer the horse to walk on the loose rein again. And this continues until the horse then finally is able to walk towards where the others are waiting on a loose rein. And that's often kind of a light bulb moment for this horse, because then the horse realizes that relaxing when in the back makes the pressure go away and is a much easier solution than always trying to go faster and catch up with the others. But if we are not aware of this, as riders, we would be managing the symptoms and trying to hold the horse back, which is going to make it worse and is not going to solve the problem. And this is something we can then, by just doing a trail ride together with others with this specific aim in mind of being able to walk on the loose reins, although the others are up in the front, that's going to solve it in 1, 2, or at the very most 3 sessions. But if we are constantly holding the horse back, this is going to get worse and worse. Yes, so this is not hard to fix at all. So let me know in the comments below if you have a rushy horse and if you want to try this with your horse. And there's the third problem that very often also makes us manage symptoms versus solving the cause. And that is the opposite problem, actually. If the horse is lacking forwards, we as riders tend to make sure the horse doesn't slow down. And what happens is that we tend to use our leg aid to keep the horse forwards, which is actually going to prevent the horse from learning how to maintain forwards from self. And it's also going to wear out our leg aid and make the horse more and more dull to our leg aid. So the easiest way to fix this is to actually not ask the horse to go forwards when the horse is actually moving forwards, but only ask the horse to go forwards if the horse slows down or stops. Because then the horse is going to get a release from our leg aid when maintaining forward. Because if we don't do this, the only time a horse who's lacking forward and who's kept going forwards with the leg aid or the seat aid or whatever is going on is only going to get the release when standing still. So that horse is going to look even more for the stop, because that's where the maintenance of forward aids from the rider goes away, and when the horse then gets a release. Yes. So let me know in the comments if you have a horse who could use a little bit more forwards. Then make sure to try this tip. Just don't give your horse leg aid when the horse is actually forwards. Only give leg aid when the horse slows down or stops. And make sure that every time you give a leg aid, the horse is actually going faster. Yes, don't use the leg aid to maintain it. Okay, and there's a fourth problem that I know many and especially trail riders might have, and that is what's called when a horse is being barn sour. And although we can make a barn sour horse leave the stable and also make sure a barn sour horse isn't rushing homewards, managing the symptom of barn sourness isn't going to fix it, because barn sourness comes from the horse, thinking of the stable as the best place to be. So we actually fix it by, training more by the stable and releasing more away from the stable. And maybe even, turn our habits a little bit upside down. Because by always doing the same thing, when returning from the trail and going to the barn, we take the saddle off and we give food and the horse is reunited with friends, etc. That makes the horse think of the barn as a better place to be than to be out on the trails, which can actually also cause anxiety and the horse rushing and bolting homewards. Or it can even also cause horses to, refuse to leave the stable and rear up and, stuff like that. But usually it manifests a little more subtle way, like we just need a little bit of riding signals to get the horse away from the stable. And often when turning homewards, we need to use riding signals to make sure the horse doesn't rush homewards. And I think, although it's even kind of slightly, it shows that the horse has the mind somewhere else than where they are. Their mind is at the stable. And we can't solve that by using more riding signals. We can solve it by actually making the horse think of the stable in another way. By riding by the stable. Yes, and maybe go for a picnic when on a trail. So fixing this can have a huge effect on horses' responsiveness to signals and their straightness, and also the way they carry themselves. And by just doing this for a couple of sessions, like making the barn a place of work and the trail more a place of fun and joy and relaxation, has a huge effect on horses. They become much, much straighter, and very often it also solves quite a few rushing problems, like horses who are rushing homewards will stop rush homewards, and also horses who kind of lack forward will find and maintain forward by changing the horse's ID actually. Yes, so let me know in the comments below if you have a barn sour horse. Yes. And the fifth thing I think we as riders tend to solve by managing the symptoms instead of actually solving the cause is anxiety in horses. And horses are flight animals and they are prey animals. And of course, they might become more anxious than if we were, handling predators who are not flight animals and who are not prey animals. Like horses tend to be a little bit on the lookout. And, they can be eaten at any time. That's how they have evolved over millions of years. So, horses having a bit of anxiety, sometimes spooking, and being a bit on the lookout is not unnormal. But what's unnormal is if we, are not able to empty worry as it builds up. And a great way of, preventing worry from being emptied and for anxiety to build up in horses is by controlling them. But very often, the more anxious a horse gets and the more, they tend to spook and buck and bolt and be like unpredictable, the more we want to control them. And then they start to feel a little bit claustrophobic because as flight animals, they need a way out. So a very great way to solve anxiety in horses is to, rather than controlling them, to actually give choices. And this might kind of sound a bit weird, but these choices need to be kind of made a little bit strategically so that the horse kind of will figure out themselves that something isn't dangerous. Yeah, like horses can be afraid of rocks and mailboxes or something that's there that wasn't there the day before. But we, of course, know it's not dangerous, but they don't know it's dangerous. And if we try pressuring the horse past these dangerous objects, they are not going to get convinced that the objects aren't dangerous. They actually might even start associating things they get worried about with pressure, which adds on to the anxiety and makes the anxiety build up till the horse explodes. But if we instead can release by the scary objects and maybe then put the horse to a little bit more work away from them, the horse is going to start associating scary object with release and relaxation and realize the objects aren't scary and aren't dangerous. They are actually the opposite. So the more we try to control these horses, the more they tend to freak out, which makes us control them even more, while the solution is actually to give choices. Because we can't really get a yes if the horse hasn't had a choice. We can't convince a horse something isn't dangerous by making them, get over it. They need to figure it out themselves. There are, of course, many other ways to solve anxiety in horses. But I know from myself that, if a horse is anxious and feels unpredictable, then I, want to make sure the horse doesn't do anything stupid. And that's very often by then controlling the horse instead of giving choices and actually trust the horse more. Yes. So these are very, very common pitfalls. And I think that if we fail to, solve the cause of the problems, we end up riding with them and very often make them worse. And horses, they don't necessarily stay the same. They either get worse or they get better. But by catching ourselves actually managing symptoms instead of trying to solve the cause of problems, will take us a huge step towards solving the problem. And it's much, much easier than very many riders think. And once we have solved these problems, we have solved the separation anxiety, we have solved the rushing, we have solved lack of forward, we have solved barn sour, and we have solved anxiety. We solve these things, horses become very, very easy to ride. But if you ask any rider if it's easy to ride, most of them say, oh my God, it's very complicated. It takes a lifetime of practice. Yes, of course, it takes a lifetime of practice to, manage all these problems without solving them. If we constantly need to keep the horse forwards so it doesn't stop, then of course riding becomes complicated and difficult. Or if we constantly need to manage like an unpredictable horse who is rushing and etc., then of course it becomes complicated. But horses aren't really that complicated, and they aim to please, and they are also very sensitive. So once we, solve these underlying issues, at least what I have found is that horses, even horses others have given up on, become very, very easy to ride. And they, become self-controlling, and they start enjoying being ridden, which again affects how they use their bodies and carry themselves. So from a very negative spiral, things can very quickly turn and go over to a positive spiral. Yes. And if you want to learn more about this and the exact framework and the tools you need to have to be able to do this and solve, basically, I would say, almost any problem with any horse. Like if you're lacking forward, or you have anxiety issues, or your horse is barn sour, or whatever might be going on, this can be solved with this type of training method. And if you want to learn how to go about this, I now actually invite you to a 3-part live training where I go through how you can communicate with horses through body language and also get your horse super light to signals, both the rein aid and the leg aid. And what I found over the years is that by training horses in this way, by giving choices and communicating with them through body language and solving the actual cause of problems instead of managing the symptoms, horses become very, very easy to also train at liberty. And once we are able to train and ride a horse at liberty, we are not using our riding signals to control the horse anymore. We are only using the signals to ask the horse to do stuff, which is so much easier way of riding than, managing the horse. Yes. And it's something horses appreciate, which again makes them feel good and behave well and move better. So if you want to join, we are actually now opening you can reserve your spot to this 3-part live training on ridelikeaviking.no/masterclass. And the live training is going to be on the 18th and the 20th and the 22nd of September. And you might have attended like a webinar or masterclass with me before, but usually I've only held just one masterclass. And what I found is that this topic is quite huge and there are then quite limited time for questions and answers. But by, giving you everything you need and also having then time to ask questions and get answers, then I think this is going to be a much better way of learning this so that you can succeed with liberty and solve problems with horses, even the ones others have given up on. But of course, I'm not giving any medical or veterinarian advice. So this course is not going to solve your horse's physical issues, to say so. Like if your horse needs veterinarian care, then the veterinarian needs to take care of it. But what I found, because over the years I have rescued dozens of horses, and some of them have come with ligament issues, which is not uncommon. Like they might have had kissing spines or back pain, or ligament issues very often in the front feet, from very much from being ridden in an unproductive way, which is very common actually, and a very complicated way. This tends to actually manifest as physical problems with the horse. But it's not really a physical problem, it's just a symptom of how the horse has been trained for a long period of time. And even if you get a veterinarian to help you and give the horse 8 weeks off or whatever, if the horse is then trained in the way that caused these physical problems, those physical problems are not going to go away. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that. So if you want to join, make sure to check the link on ridelikeviking.no/masterclass, and you will secure your spot. And I very much look forward to see you there. And it's going to be a blast. And I have never offered this as a 3-part training before, but I think it's going to benefit you who are participating, and the horse community, because after I discovered this way of training horses, everything changed, and difficult horses became easy to train in a much safer way as well. But you're going to learn everything you need to know to succeed with this yourself on the masterclass, and I'm looking very much forward to see you there. Okay, thank you so much for joining this evening, and I hope this helps. Bye for now.